We're talking today about living in the present. Last week we talked about learning from the past in this past, present, and future series. Living in the present. And can I be honest with you and tell you, well, I'm just going to be honest with you anyway, because I can't hear your answer to that question, but I am not always really good at this. At least I haven't always been really good at it. It truly is something that I feel like I've been trying to be intentional about, living in the present, enjoying the present. And really, I feel like it's something the Lord's kind of been doing in me. But I typically tend to be the person who, when I'm in the middle of something, I'm always already thinking about the next thing that needs to be done, the list of things to do. I've even sat with people, and I hate to admit this, I'm a really terrible person, I guess. I apologize ahead if you're one of the people I've ever done this to. But in the past, I have been bad about sitting with someone who's talking, and while I'm talking with them, my mind is so preoccupied on all of the other things that need to be done, I want to get done, that are pressing in my time or a deadline I've got. And it's not because I'm the busiest person in the world. I think everybody in the world these days, for the most part, everybody is busier than ever. I'm no busier than the next person. I just tend to be always thinking about the next thing and about my to-do list and all of that. I've honestly even been, since I'm being so honest here, I've even been guilty of sitting down to read my Bible and find myself as I'm reading thinking about, again, the list, the stuff, the deadlines, all the things. And really I end up just reading the Bible so I can check a box and say I read it for the day, like some big award goes to me for reading the Bible. Yet I got nothing out of it. If you ask me, well, what did you get a nugget from today? No, I don't even know what I read. I can't remember, because I was just going through the motions, because I wasn't living in the present. I wasn't sitting down with my Bible to say, Lord, show me today something you want to speak to me. I have the wonderful privilege of holding your word, your living word, in my hands. And I get to do this and spend time with you and hear from you and let you speak to me and learn from this word. And yet I just go through it so busy checking a box because I'm too busy thinking about everything else and what has to be done. I really, truly desire to live in the present. And when I go visit with people and sit over coffee or lunch or whatever, I want to give them my full attention and just push aside everything. Because you know what? Everything on that list is going to be there when I'm done, right? Nobody's going to swoop in and magically just take care of all of my list and all of my things. And so I really have been trying to be intentional about those moments and connect with people and not just say, okay, I connected with fill in the blank, and so now I can check that box, I finally did it. No, I want to lean in, listen, be a part, connect, and truly carry. Maybe they're sharing something on their heart, and I want to help carry that load, right? Well, we were talking last week, and this whole looking at the Christmas story from if we were living in the day, in the moment, standing there in Bethlehem when this amazing birth of Christ happened. If we lived in that present day moment, we were looking at the fact that everything has a past, present, and future. So last week we talked about the past, and the past of the Christmas story, again, from the perspective of living in it at that moment, the past would have been the announcement that he was coming. So today, looking at the present, we can look at the fact of when it actually happened. That would have been the present day moment of the story when the birth of Christ actually happened. So let's read those verses in Luke 2, verses 1 through 7. It says, "And it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This census first took place while Quirinius was governing Syria. So all went to be registered, every one to his own city. Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed wife, who was with child. So it was that while they were there, the days were completed for her to be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn." Now the story goes on, and the shepherds come and visit and all of that, and you can of course finish reading that entire story. But this would have been that present moment of Christ's birth. Praise God, right? Hallelujah. Jesus is born. What an amazing, amazing thing. What a gift that we all have access to if we'll just put our faith in Him. But in this story, the statement that probably has always stood out to me, I can remember reading this many times and for many years, and the statement that stands out is when it says there was no room for him in the inn. I really think the present situation today is very much the same. There is often no room for him even in our lives as well. We're just too busy. We're just too busy. And it's really easy to say this statement that I've said, well, if you're too busy for Jesus, then you're just too busy. And guess what? I wholeheartedly, 100% agree with that statement. I have said it and I will say it again, and I believe it to be true. We do need to carve out things in our life and in our schedules and things that we add to ourselves that are unnecessary. We need to get up early. We need to find those moments to spend time with the Lord. But I want to look for just a second at another way to maybe view this statement, there's no room in the inn. I know people who are single parents, and they would truly say to me, Kathy, I already work 2 to 3, sometimes 4 jobs just to make ends meet. There's not one of those jobs I can do without literally to make ends meet. I have kids that have to be up in the morning and got to make sure they're fed and they get to school, and then I've got to pick them up and I got to make sure they get their homework done. I'm a single parent. I'm trying to get their whole lives together, their food together. I'm trying to provide for them. The economy's rough. Things are tight. I already get up every morning at 5 and I go to bed at midnight just trying to keep the house in order, just trying to keep some kind of order to our home and our structure and tending to the laundry and all of this stuff. And every bit of that you could look at and say there's not one of those things you could cut out, right? You can't just not wash the kids' clothes. You can't just not feed them. You can't not go grocery shopping. You can't not tend to those things. And I understand the dilemma, not from experience, I'm not that person, so I'm not trying to say I know how you feel. No, I'm not in that situation. But you'll notice in the Christmas story, there was no room for them in the inn, but there was room in the stable, in a manger. There was room, even though there was no room in the inn, there was room in a manger. So what's the point to that statement? Well, we oftentimes don't make room for him because we set these standards of what it has to look like, what our time with the Lord has to look like. We often want it to look like a nice room in the inn with really plush bedding and nice thick lush towels and a nice hot shower. We have room in the inn. That's what we want our time. But what if we made room for him in our lives, even if it looked kind of like a messy stable and a manger? What if it meant kneeling beside the bed when we first wake up, pre-coffee? If your brain's kicked in, pre-coffee. What if it meant kneeling on the side of the bed, pre-coffee, taking a minute to wake up, first moment, and say, Lord, I'm here. I'm listening to you. I love you. I am making room for you in my life. What if it meant taking 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever that might be, in that messy area, that messy manger of that moment? What if it meant when the kids were eating breakfast, as they do, you read 2 or 3 scriptures and you talk about what it means and you say a prayer, even while they're slurping down their cereal and their milk? What if in that messy moment you made room for him? What if when traffic is horrible heading to work and you're sitting there frustrated and you sit in this messy manger of a highway and you pray instead of catching the latest news or listening to that podcast that you wanted to hear the next episode of? I'm not making, those things are all fine and have their place. But what if in those messy moments, instead of waiting for the inn to be available, what if in the messy moments of the manger, you took the time to make room for him in the laundry room or the car, giving the kids a bath, staying in a place where you keep your mind on him and you make room for him in your heart and you keep his name forever on your lips? That's living in the present. Take care of the things you're responsible for, but while you're doing that, keep Jesus in the forefront. Don't push him aside simply because you can't make your time look the way you think it ought to look, or the way other people's looks, or the way their Facebook says it looks. Make room for him. In one version, we talked last week about the movie The Christmas Carol. And looking at that again, in one of the versions, there's of course several versions out there these days, but in one of the older versions, when this Scrooge character is visited by the ghost, you know what I'm talking about, the ghost of Christmas Present, the ghost says to him, "So it is true, the child born in Bethlehem doesn't live in men's hearts one day a year, but all the days of the year." So if we know He lives in us every day of the year, we can understand that He is always present in us, and we can choose to live in the present every single day, spending time with Him. Whatever your time looks like, whether it's a beautiful inn or a messy manger, make room for Jesus.